also Rug Delver.
Rug Delver mirror, one of the if Chris Pakula was here, he would love to watch this matchup. Rug Delver, one of those matchups where being on the play very important because it allows you to play around Stifle first and kind of get that spell into play. Getting a turn 1 Delver into play or setting up your Ponder so that you can make sure you don't get wastelanded out of the game. Very important. So Matthew Hoey's got to be happy that he won the die roll here.
Yeah, this is like a little game of chicken. It's actually really interesting. Between Wastelands and Stifles and Dazes and all this other stuff, it's kind of back and forth. Mann has won a Legacy Open with Rug Delver earlier this year in Atlanta. It was actually on my birthday, the day that I messed up my foot and couldn't call that show. So unfortunately, I didn't get to see him win, but he did win that tournament. Again, he does have a Pro Tour top 8 last year in Montreal as well. Very skilled Magic player. The funny thing is when I found out he was here, I was confused because he lives in Florida.
Yeah, it's quite the trip.
Yeah, and I found out that he was here from Andrew Shrout in the sideboard, him just kind of perusing, and Shrout knows Steven, and I know Steven as well just from playing Magic for a while, and Shrout's just like, I don't know why he's here, but he wanted to play, and I'm just like, all right.
When you got the fever, you're going to game no matter what. And Chris Pakula almost flew to this Open as well.
Yeah, I love it.
Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it, but yeah, I mean, sometimes you just got the fever. You want to play Magic.
Delver's got the fever. It's going to flip into Insectile Aberration. Ponder is what was revealed. We saw Hoey on turn 1 search out that Volcanic Island via Flooded Strand as well, so we'll see how Hoey wants to progress here. Mann, just a Tropical Island into a Nimble Mongoose. Both of these players, I believe, have Stifles in their deck.
Yeah, both players. Stifle, we didn't see it in...
No, Hoey
doesn't have, actually. He doesn't have Stifle.
But Steven Mann does. Steven Mann has 4. So the Rug Delver lists are like pretty stock. Here's a Ponder from Hoey after wastelanding a Tropical Island. Things do change a little bit, though. Gataxian Probe is the thing that's really making its way into a bunch of deck lists now.
Yeah, I really like Gataxian Probe in the main deck. So you see some copies. Hoey's got 2 copies. Mann's got 4. I really like Gataxian Probe, particularly in Legacy, because having perfect information in a format like Legacy where the margin of error is so slim, I think it's really important to kind of help you play out your turns, particularly with a deck like Rug Delver. You have so many non-basics. A lot of times, being able to go turn 1 Gataxian Probe helps you know, do I need to Ponder first, or do I need to just get that Delver into play? Because it really matters.
So after the attack with Delver, Mann is sitting at 17. He's just got a lone Nimble Mongoose in play as his only permanent. He does have another land over there in Scalding Tarn. He's also got a couple of cantrips. You see 2 Ponders and a Brainstorm in his hand. He's also got a Stifle there as well. He also has a Gataxian Probe, so he wants info. First Gataxian Probe of the match.
Yeah, the problem with Stifle is that it's not very good when you're on the draw. In this particular scenario, I'm not really sure that Stifle in the deck is really going to matter that much. So obviously, Matt's got a huge advantage here with the Delver already in play. His list, though, seems to be a little bit better suited for game 1, although he does have 1 copy of True Name Nemesis. That's a card that some people have been adding to their Rug Delver list. I'm not really a fan of it because it's really hard for this deck to get to 3 mana.
18 lands.
Yeah, 18 lands, 4 of which are Wasteland. You're dazing on a lot of the times as well. So, yeah, True Name Nemesis is not a really card that I'm a big fan of in Rug Delver lists, although he only has 1 copy here.
You saw the hand from the Probe. Hoey looking at a Daze, a Chain Lightning, a Lightning Bolt, a Wasteland, and another Volcanic Island. One thing he doesn't have right now is green mana, but his hand doesn't need green mana to operate, so that's okay. Mann is going to go down to 14. You saw 3 from the Delver hit, 2 from the Probe, 1 from the Tarn. He's going to search out a land here. He's got to decide if he wants red or green, so Trop or Volcanic, and then how he wants to progress. Again, he's got a couple cantrips in his hand, 2 copies of Ponder along with the Brainstorm. He's working his way towards Threshold with that Nimble Mongoose, but in a perfect world, that Nimble Mongoose would be a flip Delver.
Yeah.
Because that's the best start for this deck.
Yeah, both Rug Delver lists kind of similar. I mean, like you said, Rug Delver is pretty much has a core that you really don't change of. Tarmogoyf, Nimble Mongoose, Delver, Seeker's Lightning Bolt, Daze, Force of Will, Brainstorm, Ponder. Those are all 4s, regardless of what your list you are. And then the rest of the deck, you can see how many Spell Pierce do you want to play, how many Gataxian Probes you want to play. You mix it up there. Although usually you have 1 other 1 mana burn spell. Sometimes it's Fork Bolt. Here it's Chain Lightning. Although Hoey's playing 2 Chain Lightning. He also has Spell Snares in his main deck, 2 copies. That's a card that you don't see that often in Rug Delver. So I don't think it's going to matter that much this game. This game's pretty much going to be all about those 1-drops and just trying to navigate through that. Steven has yet to find either a Lightning Bolt or another way to deal with that Delver Secrets.
Mann going to cast another Gataxian Probe. Going to take damage too, so he goes down to 12. that increment and that life total is very important because that's 4 Delver hits now.
Yeah.
More importantly, we know that Hoey has a bolt and a chain. So let's say that Mann is at a virtual 6 plus an insect operation hit puts him at a virtual 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little scary. I mean,
Yeah.
probe is great, cantrips, get the information, all that stuff, but it definitely comes at a cost.
Yeah, it comes at a cost, and plus you have sack lands in your deck. Steven's going to cast Ponder here. He did get the lightning bolt the turn before off that Gataxian probe, in order to deal with the insect operation. Unfortunately, he didn't want to just cast it, fearing that he might play into a daze or possibly force.
He knows about the
daze.
daze.
And he knows, because of the Gataxian probe. So he's still digging a little bit more to try to find the other land. Unfortunately, this deck can function pretty well off of 1 or 2 lands even. But in this particular scenario, Steven's under a lot of pressure because of the cards like Daze.
He needs to find a second land so he can guess that lightning bolt and take care of the insect operation. But again, he's at a virtual 3 right now because we know that Delver's going to get to hit again.
Yeah.
That's a lock. So Mann is at a virtual 9. And because of those 2 burn spells, there's no guarantee that those will resolve. But if we assume that they do, that means that Mann's at a virtual 3. And that's not a great spot to be, obviously. Ponder's going to draw a mystery card. Right now, Mann's just looking for a land, and he found one. So in comes no Mongoose. You see the cards in the graveyard. There are 5 over there. So no Mongoose is working its way towards Threshold. Hoey's going to quickly untap and take a draw. It's another copy of Delver of Secrets. He'll start by sitting in with the first. Man, it will go down to that 9 that we did mention. Here's a Wasteland. That's going to mess everything up. There's the Delver, pass the turn back, and again, Daze is as good as a counterspell right now.
Yeah, it's just too good in this situation. Matthew, with double Wasteland being on the play, and he's just putting way too much pressure on Steven's mana. Steven just isn't able to really mount much of a comeback in this situation. Even the second Delver, like you said, he's virtually at 6 because of the burn in his hand. That might not resolve, but given the fact that he has a Daze, and we know that Steven doesn't have any counterspells, you can pretty much say he's basically at 3 right here. So. If that other insect Delver of Secrets flips, this game's pretty much over.
Man's going to take a look at his hand. He does again have that Scalding Tarn that he can play that he picked up, from the shuffle from Ponder. But again, the Daze is basically a counterspell in this situation. He needs to hope that maybe that that Delver doesn't flip into an insectile aberration. But we saw Steven Mann win a really, really impressive game yesterday in the standard portion against Kenta Hikori, but I don't think he'll be able to do it in this particular game.
Yeah, and this game, I think he was just under too much pressure early on. Matthew had like the ideal start for a Rug Delver deck, turn 1 Delver, followed by Wasteland. He has the burn to kind of finish things off, so pretty good start here. But again, Steven has a pretty good, because of the Stifle, they're going to be very important after board since he's going to be on the play. Stifle is a card that not only can stop a wasteland activation, but it could also go after Flooded Strand and Misty Rainforest trigger, so can keep Matthew off his mana. But really the big thing is the Wasteland. Being able to stop your opponent from wastelanding you is huge. So Steven trying to see what he's got going on here. It looks like it's not really sure if there's anything that he can get. He played his land already for the turn, so not really much he can do here. He does have a Force of Will on top of his deck, so that might be able to deal with one of the burn spells. But again, the Delver of Secrets is threatening to flip over on Matthew's upkeep, and that's probably going to seal the deal here.
Yeah, Hoey already knows what it is, too. So Mann can pick up all of those cards. We'll move to a second game here. Matt Hoey does win game number 1 over Steven Mann. Rug Delver getting the job done over Rug Delver. Sweet. Take a look at the sideboards here. We'll take a look at Mann's first. You see both players looking at the graveyards and all that stuff, getting information. They'll move to the sideboards. We'll do the same. 4 copies of Submerge, 3 Grafdigger's Cage, 3 Pyroblast, a Spell Pierce, a Flusterstorm, 2 copies of Rough and Tumble, and a Dismember. Got like Dismember because it's going to be able to kill Delver's Secrets and Tarmogoyf. We'll kill Tarmogoyf a high percentage of the time. Of course, won't take care of no Mongoose or the 1 True Nemesis that Hoey does have, but it's still a good removal spell in this matchup. Also like Submerge here for pretty obvious reasons, especially when you can catch someone when they do sacrifice a fetch land, Submerge in response, and kind of blow them out that way. Pyroblast is also pretty good as well, can take care of Delver's Secrets, and also any of these blue cantrips and or counter spells. Not sure how much I like Spell Pierce, but it certainly seems okay. I don't think you need Flusterstorm or Rough and Tumble, and Grafdigger's Cage isn't for this particular matchup, and I imagine that Hoey's sideboard is pretty close to the same.
Yeah, he's got only 2 copies of Submerge, obviously, so Mann has a slight advantage there. He's got that extra copy of True Name Nemesis, a card I don't really think you want in this matchup. I think he'll probably board out the one he has in main even. 2 Ancient Grudge, 3 Rough and Tumble, 2 Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Flusterstorm, and 3 Pyroblast. Again, This matchup all comes down to whether or not you want the Force of Wills. There's a lot of debate as to how do you actually sideboard in the Rug mirror. I mean, a lot of people, Chris Pikula being one of them, feels that Force of Wills just not a card you want in this matchup. I've heard other players, particularly European Legacy players, talk about how no, it's Force of Will is a card that you want against Delver decks. There's a lot of debate about what the correct play is there. So not really sure where Matthew kind of falls on that side of the fence. But in general, I kind of agree. I don't like having, or at the very least, I don't like having all 4 of my Force of Wills. I would shave some of those numbers. Submerge is clearly the all-star in his sideboard for this particular matchup. Pyroblast and Flusterstorms are 2 cards that you can kind of consider as well. Flusterstorm can obviously usually counter any of the spells in the Rug Delver mirror because of the mana denial strategy. Pyroblast can sometimes be dead. Again, it can kill Delver Secrets, but I don't know if I want the full complement of Pyroblast, maybe 1 or 2. But Submerge really is the card that he's probably bringing in for sure.
So the thing about the Rug Delver mirrors, it's like this giant game of chicken. When there are stifles involved and you know, there are wastelands that can get stifled, there are dazes that you can try to play around or try to ignore. Same thing can be said of Spell Pierce. You know, you're getting this information with Gitaxian Probe, but do you actually cast it for the 1 blue, or do you pay the life? You know, things like that. You know, Tarmogoyfs can run into each other, and then if you have the burn spell, they can kill the Tarmogoyf. Submerge adds another layer to that.
Yeah.
Of, you know, when exactly am I supposed to submerge? Do you have submerge? Do I go get a tropical island to turn on your submerge? You know, do I wasteland your green source to turn off my submerge? Stuff like that. So it's this big game of chicken, and I always find it really interesting because I think it's, you know, there's nothing that's, you know, cut and dry about it, about how you're supposed to play. Everything changes based on what it feels like every turn.
Yeah, it's one of the more complicated mirrors in the format. There's just so many decisions, and you're under so much pressure usually on your mana. You have to make sure you conserve your resources really well. I mean, something as simple as a lot of times you'll get hands of, you know, Sackland, Delver Secrets, Ponder, Brainstorm, Gitaxian Probe, and those hands you'll usually keep because they're pretty solid hands. But there are a million decisions there. Like if you get Gitaxian Probe, you don't hit a land. Do you lead with Ponder to try to dig for another land? Do you just get the Delver Secrets out there? There's a lot of decisions you have to make. Do I have to play around days? Like there's just so many decisions that you need to make, particularly because both of you are just attacking each other's resources so much that, you know, the slightest error, if you go for the wrong land there, does he have Wasteland plus some way to kind of stop me from getting access to green mana? You don't only have 3 tropical islands in your deck. So there's just so many decisions that you have to make constantly that this is definitely one of the more complicated mirror matches, which is why you don't see a lot of people just picking up Rug Delver out of the blue because they know this is a popular deck. You probably have to play the mirror. I would not want to have to play the mirror match if I wasn't prepared for it, if I didn't know how it played out.
Yeah, that's something I would say too. You know, Rug Delver is really popular. Yeah. I agree with you, and it's really powerful. I mean, we've seen this deck win tournaments for years now, but the mirror match is so complicated, and if you're not comfortable here, I mean, it's very easy to get outplayed. In this situation, what am I supposed to run Stifle? What am I supposed to just leave with Fetchland and play around Wasteland? Stuff like that. Like, if you're playing against someone who's very skilled, and again, we've seen Mann win tournaments, we've seen Hoey win tournaments with Esper Stoneblade and decks like that, but he's a very skilled Legacy player. You see he's going to take a mulligan. But I imagine, you know, myself playing against maybe Jacob Wilson playing Rug Delver,
oh, yeah.
I'm going to learn a thing or 20.
Yeah, I would not want to have to play against someone who knew that deck, like Jacob Wilson, Chris Pikula, guys who play this deck over and over and again. Yeah. I would not want to have to play the mirror there. Because there's so many subtle things, too. Like, there's so many different variations on sideboard strategies as well. I mean, you see some Rug Delver decks play Surgical Extraction for the mirror because you just wasteland the tropical island and then you Surgical Extract it, and suddenly they have no access to green for the rest of the game. It's like, that is certainly a strategy that I've seen Rug Delver decks employ. It's like, how do you play around it? You have to consider that while you make your plays. There's just so many things you have to think about I would not want to have to just pick up this deck and play it on the fly. It's not something that I'd be too excited to do.
It's tough, though. I mean, you know that the deck is so good. You got to learn how to play it sometime. And there's going to be a time where you do kind of pick it up and play in the fly in one tournament.
I think if you're committed to playing Legacy and you want to play in multiple Legacy tournaments, this is obviously a deck that you need to be familiar with.
Yes.
It's one of the tier 1 decks of the format. It's very popular. It wins many tournaments. You clearly, if you don't want to play it, you have to at least know the ins and outs of the deck and how it plays out.
Are we going to take a look at 6? Is he happy? He's happy enough. We're underway in game number 2. Stephen Mann got to sacrifice a polluted Delta. Going to go down to 19. We'll see if he wants the grain source in Trop or the red source in Volcanic. He's already gone by a Volcanic, so he decides it's green mana that he needs. See if he's going to lead off here with some sort of cantrip. Will it be a Nimble Mongoose, or in a perfect world, will it be a Delver of Secrets?
So it looks like it's double days. Ooh, double days, and it is a Nimble Mongoose. Okay. So at least it's a one drop. Obviously, Delver is ideal, but any one drop is usually just what you need out there. Lets your deck start functioning a little bit better.
The Goose is loose on the other side, but not anymore. That's going to get dazed. 2 cards in the graveyard here for Mann. He will draw a card. It's another copy of Nimble Mongoose. Nice. You see Hoey's hand right now. He's got a Wasteland, a Ponder, a couple of lands, and 2 Lightning Bolts. And it's kind of funny because if this were a draw here from Mann that was a Delver Secret draw, I'd say that Hoey's hand is great.
Yeah.
Because since it's a Nimble Mongoose hand, you know, Hoey is on like a double mulligan virtually. As here's a Ponder from Matt.
Yeah, Mann did have the option to kind of use the daze there, but he decided against it. He wants to just daze the cards that are relevant. Doesn't really care about letting Matthew cantrip here.
I'd be able to pick a better spot.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny to say they might be able to pick a better spot, but, you know, dazing a Ponder is really good against the 18 land deck.
Depends on what you think your opponent's hand is. It looks like Steven has an answer to the Delver Secrets in Lightning Bolt in his hand. He still has that daze, but yeah, this is a situation where if Steven had if those were Delver Secrets, he probably would be feeling Matthew wouldn't be under as much pressure just because he does have a Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning. It looks like he has a Lightning Bolt as well, and there's a Submerge on top of his deck as well. Yeah. So he has plenty of answers to Delver Secrets, but not so much the Hexproof creature.
The Mongoose is so annoying. It's just like kind of surprising how good this card is in this deck and how long, you know, when you think of the Mongoose and it came out so long ago, it's just, okay, it's a 1, it turns into a 3/3, it can't target. Like, what's the big deal? But the fact that it can't be targeted is actually a really big deal for this deck. And just a really big deal to have that kind of creature in general.
Even decks like Blue-White Miracles can have a hard time dealing with Nimble Mongoose. It's a very problematic card. One of the main reasons that Rug Delver is actually a really good deck in this format because you have 8 1-drops that are solid.
This daze is going to be insane. This daze is going to be completely insane. I thought he would have wanted to daze the Ponder or the Delver, and he held out for the 1 True Name Gnosis.
Which is very important.
Yeah, it is. So Daze takes care of the True Name. Now there are 5 cards in the graveyard for Mann. Mann picked up a copy of Wasteland.
Wow, so 1 step closer to getting Threshold.
Yep.
And he does have a Lightning Bolt, so he could turn on those Nimble Mongoose next turn. And he's going to keep him off of green here.
Yeah, the funny thing is he could, if he wanted to get hyper aggressive and it would be kind of crazy, he could Wasteland his own land and start attacking here for 6 points of damage. I don't know if that's right.
Yeah, well, the problem is if Matt has like a Tarmogoyf thing, you're just all right.
Yeah, that's true.
I have a bolt, so I can kill it after it blocks my Mongoose, but I'm going to lose one of them too.
Yeah, that's true.
He just wants to get rid of that green source to make sure that Tarmogoyf doesn't come down here. And Matt's in a real tough spot here. He's got Submerge, he's got Chain Lightning. He's got a Wasteland and a Lightning Bolt, but none of those cards really deal with the Nimble Mongoose in play.
Also, he does not want to Wasteland him. So he gives him the 7th card in the graveyard.
Gives him the 7th card, and it turns off that Submerge as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Matt's in a tight spot here. It's similar to the first game where he's just facing down 2 of the 1-drops and just doesn't have ways to deal with them.
It's so strange to look at the texture of his hand, and I think in a lot of cases this would be a pretty good hand. You know, you've got a Bolt, you've got another Wasteland, you've got a Submerge and a Chain, and you see he's shaking his head. He's just saying, I actually can't do anything. I can't waste you. I can't leave you landless because that would be bad for me. I can't bolt anything, I can't submerge anything, and I can't chain anything. So I guess I'll play a Wasteland and say go, because that's all I can really do.
Wow, Mann draws another Nimble Mongoose here, and with the Volcanic Island and the Fire Lightning Bolt in his hand, he could turn on the Threshold right here.
See how this affects the clock. If he does bolt him and let's say the bolt does resolve, Hoey goes down to 12, and then Nimble Mongoose attack for 6 puts him down to 6. So it's a 2-turner. I think you probably go for it. Maybe
yeah,
not.
I like he leads with the Nimble Mongoose first because that's what he wants to resolve. If the bolt doesn't resolve, it doesn't matter because he's still getting Threshold.
Yep.
So he's still got a 2-turn clock here.
So there's the bolt. Hoey's going to go down to 6. Hoey will draw a card, and he's going to pick up his permanents, all 3 of them. So Stephen Mann is going to win this win this game over Matthew Hoey. We'll be going to a 3rd and final game of this match in just a moment of our Rug Delver Mirror.
So again, both games, the person on the play was able to win the game. And so that's got to favor Matthew here for game 3. Again, Steven does have Stifle, which can be very effective in this matchup. Unfortunately, he is on the draw, so it's not going to be nearly as good. Still could catch Matthew if he's unprepared for it. But again, being on the play is just so huge in this mirror match.
Yeah, I wonder if you wear out Stifle on the draw. I do.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to keep all 4 in. I mean, the problem is you usually want to make a play on turn 1. So you don't want to just go Scalding Tarn go. So if you make a play on turn 1, you're going to expose yourself to Wasteland, so you can't really stifle that anyway. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if I want to keep in all 4 stifles on the draw. Obviously, Hoey doesn't have to worry about that. He has no stifle in his deck whatsoever.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. Like, Stifle is absurd on the play, where you can kind of set it up, and it just seems like on the draw, if you go out of your way to try to set up Stifles, it's going to kind of backfire.
Yeah, I think Stifle on the play, a Stifle on the draw is fine in other matchups. In this particular matchup, though, it's just so tough because, you know, they're putting pressure on your mana, plus you don't really have a lot to work with, and you can't really hold up mana to do things like that. You kind of have to be a little bit more proactive in this matchup because it's really tempo-based. So reactive spells like Stifle sometimes, particularly when you're in the draw, really just hurt you. So if it's on the play, you can actually be a little bit more proactive with it. It's not so bad if you're holding up mana. But yeah, on the draw, I just think there's some times where it's just going to look pretty awkward in your hand.
Yeah. See if Mann does leave him in or board him out. We'll see if they do come up in this particular game. Heading to game 3 of this match here between Steven Mann and Matthew Hoey. If you guys are just joining us, we do appreciate you. Cedric Phillips, Osip Lebedovic, Star City Games Open Series here in Indianapolis, Indiana. Round 4 of 9 of our Legacy Open. We're making our way through this bad boy at SCG Live, hashtag SCGINDY. For all your tweets all weekend long. It's been fun so far. Watch Big Naya win the Standard Open. Big Naya?
For definitely an underdog against Jund Monsters because of that Rakdos return, but nevertheless was able to win out. And I have to say, speaking of Legacy, why haven't we seen a Squirrel Delver of Secrets yet? I'm a little upset that we haven't seen a Squirrel Delver of Secrets.
Give it time. Give it time.
All right, we've seen a Squirrel Force of Will. We've seen Squirrel Storm.
We can see Acorn Mystic right now. We can see the newest one coming out June 13th at Legacy Opens. Playmat, deck box, dice bag, sleeves, 2 tokens of every Legacy Open entry on the Open Series beginning June 13th at the Invitational in Columbus. I think there will be, well, I wonder what a Squirrel Delver of Secrets looks like. Not really sure, but.
I wish we could vote on what the next Squirrel would be.
Uh-oh. Oh, no.
Squirrel Goyf? Squirrel of Secrets?
Squirrel Goyf? I can see this happening.
Squirrel Bands, Squirrel of Aeon's Torn. A giant squirrel eating spaghetti.
Oh, no, this is gonna set the Twitterverse off. I just want you to know that. Now everyone's gonna have ideas.
Squirrel Right Shaman.
Squirrel named Nemesis.
Squirrel named Nemesis. I think people hate True Name Nemesis, but I think they'd like a squirrel version.
I think they would. I think you can put a squirrel on anything and make it a card that's like acceptable.
It's just adorable.
Like Vapor Snag was just hated, but if it was like a picture of a squirrel or something, I'd be like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal losing to this because like the picture's adorable.
Squirrel Seas. People wouldn't complain nearly as much about Thoughtseas if they had a little squirrel on it.
What's like the least fun card to lose to? Like this you can think of? Just
God.
over Magic. I'm thinking of cards like Winter Orb.
Stasis. Winter Orb, Stasis. Yeah, there have been pretty obnoxious cards to lose to.
Just put a squirrel on there and that's just fine.
Yeah, Squirrel Stasis.
Yep.
The name alone.
Yeah,
what'd you lose to this round? Oh, I lost a Squirrel Stasis. Yeah. It was a delight.
Yeah. I couldn't do anything. He got to do everything. It was wonderful. Cataxian Probe here from Matthew Hoey. You're going to take a look at a Lightning Bolt, a Submerge, a Brainstorm, a Probe on the other side, along with Dismember 2, and then a Volcanic and a Polluted Delta. So all of the colors, plenty of spells, and some good ones, but no creature for Mann.
Yeah, no creature. So if Matthew has a Nimble Mongoose here, we could see a similar game to the one we saw in game 2. Yeah, Dismember, Lightning Bolt, Submerge, 3 removal spells. He does have a Brainstorm and a Gitaxian Probe to kind of see some more cards in his deck, but
you see the Tarmogoyf over there for Hoey. Picked up a copy of Chain Lightning. What I don't think he has is Nimble Mongoose. I'm not sure he has a 1 at all.
Yeah, he doesn't have a 1. It does look, he has a Tarmogoyf though. Oh, he does have a Delver.
That thing's not going to live all that long, I don't think. Wooded Foothills will be the sacrifice. One of the things I do like about this deck as well, I remember reading an article by Carson Cotter about the fetch lands that you can play in Rug Delver, because you can kind of trick your opponent on the opening turns.
Yeah.
You know, you could, it'd be very easy just to play Misty and Delphi and stuff like that, but if you play a Wooded Foothills and just pass, they might put you on Jund or some other deck as opposed to Rug Delver.
Yeah, Polluted Delta Flooded Trend, you could think of Esper Blade. We actually had conversations that on our mailing list about like, oh, which land should I play in Rug Delver?
Yeah.
Like, oh, like literally, probably we had 2 long conversations about it. Like, you probably don't need to overthink it that much. People were really debating as to which sack lands you really wanted in Rug Delver.
Trying to get that small edge.
Yeah, that small edge. It matters.
Delver on turn 1 off Tropical Island is the play here for Hoey.
Looks like Steven did draw a Delver Secret, so we could see a similar play to the one Matthew made.
And Gataxian Probe, here's the grip, a Wasteland, a Scalding Tarn, a Lightning Bolt, a Chain Lightning, and that Tarmogoyf. Not a bad hand here for Hoey, as far as the disruption plan is concerned.
Yeah, Steven has answers to both the Tarmogoyf and the Delver Secrets. And the good thing is that he doesn't have to worry too much. Matthew has a Wasteland, but beyond that, he doesn't have to worry too much about cards like Stifle, obviously, and any other pressure there. Doesn't have to worry about Daze, obviously.
Force of Will was the card drawn here for Mann. A card that we haven't really seen show up yet in this matchup. Wasn't sure if he's going to leave him in or not, and he has chosen to. Mann's going to go into the tank here. He's a pretty deliberate player, always trying to set up a game plan. We saw this again yesterday in the Standard Open when he defeated Kenta Corey in a mono-black mirror. It was really, really impressive to watch, a game that I did not think that he was going to win.
Yeah.
He figured some things out, was able to craft a game plan and find something that he liked. He's going to go with Lightning Bolt on the Delver Secrets before passing the turn back. I think he knows that this land is going to die because of the Wasteland over there on Hoey's side. But, you know, he probably just has to be okay with it.
Well, the question is whether or not Matthew wants to just get a Tarmogoyf out there. Tarmogoyf with the creature, instant, sorcery, and land, it would be a 4/5. So it would survive a Dismember. It would get submerged, but again, maybe he just wants to try to get that into play. Matthew knows.
Would it survive a Dismember?
I think it would be a 4/5, right?
Yeah, neck 5, and Dismember. And
oh,
there's an
okay, that's right, yeah.
There is a Tarmogoyf. So it probably does, yeah, it'll bite the dust of Dismember. The question is, does he want to cast Dismember, or does he want to, like, try to Force of Will this?
He also has a Submerge as well.
Yeah.
So we're waiting to get a Tarmogoyf die here to show you what the power and toughness is going to be, which should be a 4/5. Steven has a couple of options. Both players playing with pretty much perfect information here because of the Gataxian Probe.
Probe is so good.
Because of the Lightning Bolt, you'd expect Steven to just go after Goyf, just get those creatures off the board, and then start to kind of worry about using Delver Secrets later on. Again, he knows that Matthew's got a couple of answers to his creature, so doesn't really need to rush to get into play. He might try to cast it right now.
Yeah, again, as you mentioned, because of the information from Gataxian Probes, both players have a really good idea of what they're working with. You know, I know, we know that Mann knows this is going to die.
Yeah.
You know, it can get submerged right now. All of those things can happen.
Wow, so Hoey draws a Force of Will of his own. He doesn't have a blue card to pitch to it, though, I believe, other than the Submerge.
He's going to sacrifice Scalding Tarn, go a digging. Looks like he's going to go get his Volcanic Island.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if he just go after Delver right here with a Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning.
Maybe Wasteland something, too.
Yeah, maybe. Here's the tough part. Do you go after the Tropical Island to keep him off from playing Goyf?
Yeah.
Or do you turn off your Submerge?
That's actually pretty hard to say. Do you even have to Wasteland? I mean, you probably do, right?
Yeah, you could just keep color screw him. You know, you never really know. You know he's got a. I think you don't really know about any other lands in his hand. You only saw the Polluted Delta and the Volcanic Island.
Delver Secrets is a draw here from Mann. That might be a great card to use for the Force of Will, because you know that it's unlikely it's going to live. But maybe you have to work your way through this other Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, you might want to brainstorm to try to dig for a Nimble Mongoose or a Goyf. A little more durable threat here. Looks like that is what he's going to do.
That's good to go. 2 and 3. Gataxian Probe, Wasteland, and it looks like maybe a Daze was picked up.
Wow,
yeah.
so pretty good draw there. Wasteland puts pressure on Matt's mana. You can actually go after the Volcanic Island and then play Delver next turn, knowing that he doesn't have access to red, perhaps.
Sure.
Plus, you have a Daze and a Force of Will to protect your Delver. So we might be seeing Steven trying to set up a Delver turn for next turn.
Yeah, it's funny, like, you know, Daze is this card that you think of, the longer the game goes, the worse it gets. But in this matchup, because of all of the disruption and mana denial, Daze is on a really large percentage of the time.
Yeah, there's very few games where your opponent's going to have 4 mana in play. Usually, the boards look like this by turn 5 or 6. So Daze is usually on, like you said. And in this particular scenario, it's going to be pretty good for him, just because, one, you can kind of put a lot of pressure on Matthew's colored mana, as well as putting pressure on his mana in general.
Brainstorm does resolve. 2 cards do go back. We know that Mann does have a fetch land if he wants to make it a perfect Brainstorm. But it looks like he might fire off the... Well, he's a little unsure of himself.
Well, again, he has to worry about Stifle. He doesn't know that Matthew has no copies of Stifle in his main deck. So
that's true.
It looks like he's going to lead with Caxton Probe just to make sure.
2 bolts and a Force.
Wow, so if you're Steven here, you're kind of kicking yourself because now I have to worry about Force next turn if he draws a blue card.
Yep.
But again, at least you don't have to worry about Stifle. So it looks like he is going to go after the Volcanic Island.
No red mana for Hoey. Hoey's going to draw a card. Picked up a copy of Tropical Island. Doesn't have much of a reason to play the Tropical Island right now, though. That's the thing. Just going to pass the turn back over
I'd rather
Mann.
bluff a blue spell.
Yeah. Take a draw, Will Mann. He's going to play a Scalding Tarn. He's going to follow this up with a Delver Secrets that he's probably just going to try to protect and take to the house. Hoey picks up a card. I think it was a copy of Spell Pierce, and it was. Will he play the land now is the question. He will.
Yeah, and a lot of times these are the kind of games you win. You know, your opponent just gets color screwed because of Wasteland and Stifle. Now, Delver Secrets, even though you have multiple bolts in your hand, just doesn't matter.
Delver doesn't flip. The question is this a card that Mann wants to draw? He's got this fetch land out here that he may want to use to make it so that he draws a new card. However, you know, by doing this, there's a chance that he searches up a Trop, which turns on a Submerge. Also, that's a fetch land he doesn't have for the future for Ponders and Brainstorms.
Yeah, not only that, but if Matthew does find a red source or is able to deal with that Tropical Island, suddenly you lose the ability to actually cast your green spells. So, yeah, definitely something Steven was considering. But again, maybe he just really didn't want to draw that card.
I drew a Brainstorm, so this was a good
perfect
decision.
draw, perfect decision. Digs a little deeper in his deck, lets him set up a Delver turn, a Delver flip, rather.
Now, this is the fun part, too. Which land do you use to cast the Brainstorm? Do you do it with the red source because you could draw on the Bolt? Do you do it with the green source because you could draw on the Nimble Mongoose?
Yeah, I think you just want to, you have to lead with the red in case you draw Nimble Mongoose. Resolving a Mongoose here would be huge.
All these decision points that I'm bringing up, I would just mess this up if I played the tournament. Like, there's just no way I would be able to get it right for the entire day.
So Matthew's got the option to pitch the Spell Pierce to cast the Force of Will. If he does that, I would say Steven probably forces back.
He could just pierce it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Of course.
Forget the Force of Will, just pierce the bad boy.
So Steven now knows exactly what's in Matt's hand. He knows he's got a Force of Will, 2 Lightning Bolts. He might just force back here, but it looks like he's going to let it resolve. He now has perfect information.
That's Hoey draw. Nimble. It's big. That's for sure.
Let's see here. Steven's at 10. Yeah, you might have to force this.
Force removing Submerge.
Yeah, force removing Submerge.
Force removing Daze might be fine too. Like the Daze is. I mean, we said the Daze is always on, but like given the texture of his hand.
At this point, given the fact that if he draws a red source, he's gonna have 2 mana up for Lightning Bolt. Yeah, it doesn't really matter anymore.
So Force is gonna take care of the Nimble Mongoose. Mann's gonna go down to 9. Mann's going to draw a card.
Oh,
it's not going to flip the Delver. In for 1 comes Delver. Hoey's going to go down to 14. Mann needs those attacks to be for 3, not for 1.
Yeah, so Mann's in a tough spot here. If Matthew just draws a red source, it's going to be really hard for him to come back because Delver Secrets is almost definitely dying.
Hoey draws his card. I don't think it was the land he's looking for.
Ooh.
It's a Brainstorm. That's a good start. Look at the back and forth between these two. There's 1. That's a Volcanic right off the top. 2 is a Force of Will. 3 looks like may have been a Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, so pretty good draw there. It draws a red source and also gets a Tarmogoyf there. So Matt in pretty good shape now. If he I think Steven just has a Submerge left in his hand and a Scalding Tarn. So yeah, this Lightning Bolt should resolve.
2 cards go back. Hoey gonna play this and that right away.
Yeah, so he keeps both the Force of Wills in his hand, so he has the option to force anything that Steven plays.
Mann gonna draw a card now. See what he finds. It's a Tarmogoyf.
Not bad. Unfortunately, we know that Matthew does have a Force of Will, so I'd imagine he 100% forces Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, I would think so. The other thing that's interesting here, too, is does Mann want to play that land to try to play around Daze? Like, you imagine that your opponent probably put back a Daze because it's not that good. But, yeah, there's Force removing Force Will. We had a feeling that was not going to resolve. All Mann can do now is just pass the turn back. And I think Hoey's got a Tarmogoyf about to roll off the top of his deck here. Yep.
Yeah, and Steven knew about one of the Force of Wills. He didn't know about the other because of Brainstorm, obviously. So, but I think you have to lead with it there. You don't really have a choice.
No Mongoose in the house.
So he still has a Submerge in his hand. So he could Submerge. He's probably going to take a hit from for 4. Or he might actually, yeah, he'll Submerge mid-combat. And then just attack for 3 next turn. He's still needing the top deck.
He needs a Tarmogoyf of his own.
Yeah, Tarmogoyf of his own. Maybe even another Submerge and Lightning Bolt, Ponder. There's plenty of cards you can draw here.
It's a tight game.
Yeah, Steven being at 9.
Yeah, that's Snap Submerge. Put that back on top of the deck. Hoey drew a Bolt this turn, don't forget. This is probably going to be an attack for 3 to start. Hoey's going to go down to 10. This is a big draw for Mann on what this is. He just has to pass the turn back. Hoey's going to draw and play the Tarmogoyf. And Mann can do nothing, so he draws a card. He's drawn 2 lands in a row.
So just the Wasteland. Wasteland can actually take out the Volcanic Island. Can't see. I'm not sure if Hoey's got 2 tropical islands in play.
I think it's 2 drops, 1 Volcanic.
Okay, so at least he can turn off the Lightning Bolt. But you'd imagine Hoey probably is just going to pull the trigger on the Lightning Bolt here.
I would imagine.
Given that Steven's at 9.
Yeah, just fire that up, put you to 6.
Yeah, make it a 2-turn clock as opposed to a 3-turn clock.
Hoey going to draw a card here. Don't have to worry about the reach. Can take the hit from the Tarmogoyf. Go down to 2. Yikes.
Oh, wow.
There's a Delver. Mann going to draw his card for the turn. Delta, Volcanic, an extension of the hand. Matt Hoey going to win this match over Steven Mann. 2 games to 1. Rug Delver, well, was going to win. It just does in the hands of Hoey. Moves on to 4-0.
Yeah, Steve got a little unfortunate there. His draws got a little land flooded towards the end there, but Hoey played really well, did everything he needed to do. And drew a timely threat in Tarmogoyf right at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, both these players are really, really good Magic players, too. Mann, again, with the Pro Tour top 8 at Pro Tour Gate Crash. Was won a Legacy Open earlier this year. We've seen Hoey win Legacy Opens over the past couple of years. Oftentimes doing with Stoneforge Mystic in his deck, but trying a new approach here with Rug Delver. You know, not the name that Steven Mann is, but if you watch the Open Series a lot and play in the Midwest, you know who Matthew Hoey is. So not surprising to see him off to a 4-0 start this weekend at all, and a really good match between the 2 players. The back and forth between Rug and Delver is really complicated.
Yeah, really complicated. And one of those matches that